You can stay there for 40 years if you continue to win your elections. So we Africans must begin to look at governance. The problem in Africa is our electoral system. People manipulate the elections to be there by all means. If we are doing proper elections and if you are not doing well, people will vote you out. We may not even ask these questions. Because those who are not doing well, the population will vote them out. But in this case, people use government instruments to perpetuate themselves in power, even when the people don't want them. But the key thing is not even the terminology. All those terms are more figurative or metaphorical in terms of usage. They may not be necessarily literal. But if you listen to what is happening in the US now, their foreign policy regarding Africa south of the Sahara, where they are saying that they are no longer going to be too interested in any form of government that we run in our countries, but they will be more interested in the economies of the nations and how the citizens survive. That is very dangerous. By implication, whether it's military or dictatorship is not a problem to them, as long as the citizens are happy. And that is why we need to have this occasional dialogue to interrogate the concept of democracy. Kuka did mention, and others, the forms of democracy. Yes, in Africa we have practiced different forms of democracy. If you take a country like Nigeria, for example, the first republic was a parliamentary system. Then, of course, during the Second Republic, we now adopted the American presidential system. But our presidential system appears to even be stronger than that of America, because our Senate president is stronger than the American Senate president, which is the vice president. So, if you take Tanzania, they started, Julius Nyerere started with one-party system because he wanted all his people to unite so that the country will not divide along tribe and religious section. And probably that's one of the things unique about Tanzania, that the political divide is narrower than countries like Nigeria, because the founding fathers felt that there must be something they will introduce to encourage unity, and they operated in one-party system. Of course, now they have migrated to the popular multi-party system. But keenly, there are two things I have to mention. When I was the vice president, I received one of the members of the Presidential College of Switzerland. And I think it's Switzerland. And we were discussing about the issue of governance and so on. And I said that their fathers, their founding fathers, felt that giving so much power to one person, called a president, is very dangerous to people, and that they opted that they will not have a president. So every time they have more people that come together to manage the country and make the parliament rather strong, because the parliament represents all sections of the country. And they have the most stable politics today. Though with minimal resources, the economy is one of the strongest. Because the fight against rulership, like in Nigeria, north or south or east or west, is not there. And I believe that the political scientists and the lawyers in Africa, we must also be looking at some of these issues. Do we really create a unique system of government? The traditional theoretical democracy, is it really working? Frankly speaking, it's not working. Though there's this debate of, it comes up here, whether a president that is doing well can continue to stay on and on and on. And it's almost like a philosophical debate, because sometimes when you are questioned, as a former president, I find it difficult to answer. I think UNDP man raised that with me in the Gambia. I said, when I became a vice president, I didn't know I was going to be a president anyway, but somehow instinctively I just felt that what happened to these Asian tigers? Some of these Asian countries that, in Nigeria especially, we say Singapore and others, Malaysia, we were at the same level. In fact, in the late 50s to early 60s, we were even better in some parameters. But now they are almost entered first world or near first world. We are still down. What happened within this period? How long does it take them? And what are the key things? And some group of friends said, okay, I should not worry, they were going to do the research for me. And they did investigation for me, and when they came back as a summary, it took between 30 to 40 years for these countries to move from where we are today, Nigeria, Ghana, to where they are, from third world to first world or near first world. Just 30, 40 years. It was not within the lifetime of anybody. But the funny thing, which I always find it difficult to mention so that I'm not misquoted, is that, and it tallies with some of the questions the asked and Obasanjo tried to explain, but it was difficult to explain. Most of them, those countries within those short periods were managed by dictators. So sometimes it's very difficult for you if you know what happened in society. And of course, if you know that in the parliamentary system practiced by Britain, I don't know how many years Margaret Thatcher stayed as a prime minister, or maybe a place like Germany, the Chancellor of Germany, you can stay there for 40 years if you continue to win your elections. So we Africans must begin to look at governance. The problem in Africa is our electoral system. People manipulate the elections to be there by all means. If we are doing proper elections and if you are not doing well, people will vote you out. We may not even ask these questions. Because those who are not doing well, the population will vote them out. But in this case, people use government instruments to perpetuate themselves in power, even when the people don't want them. But it's always a difficult question to answer. Don't even ask me because I don't have answer. But let me really thank all of you for this. We even talk about youth leadership. And one thing I personally believe is that the youth may be wrong, are not necessarily looking for political offices. Why it appears like a country like in Nigeria, why it appears as if it is the political offices, that is the only business in the country. Where the economy is doing well and young people will find jobs or find businesses that will do, most of them in politics will not even go for politics. I was just an assistant director when I was approached to become a deputy governor of my state, and I was extremely reluctant. It's a story for another day. But if it is like, maybe if I had no job, I would have jumped on it 2 times. But because I had a source of income, and I was happy with what I was doing, I never wanted it. So I believe the young people themselves, it's because of the economies of our countries that this issue of the youth restiveness and so on is becoming so pronounced. So even civil society should interrogate this. In Nigeria, we have experienced young people that have managed the country. Of course, the First Republic, I cannot say their ages, but looking at history and the ages of those people at the time they died, they were very young people. After the death of the First Republic, the military took over, and they were young military officers. In fact, Gowon, who was first military head of state, was a bachelor. He was not even married at the time he became head of state. He was 32 going 33, a young bachelor. He was a president. In my state then, Rivers State, because then Nigeria had 12 states, the SPIF was 24 going 25. They became the military governor of Rivers State. But they did very well. And that's one of the things I want to emphasize. If you look at the cabinet of Gowon then, he had quite senior experienced people that worked with him. People like Chief Obafemi Awolowo was his vice, and a very experienced person. If you go to my state, River State then, there was a time King Spiff told all his commissioners were older than him. He was just about 25 years old. All his commissioners were older than him. And there was a story he told me. There was a day he called one commissioner and asked him to go and do something. And the commissioner turned and said, my son, who will not do it this way. Said, my son, who will not do it this way. But don't worry, we'll get this thing done. Because for you to run a state, you run a country, you need a bit of experience. It's not about punching computer or any smart device. So the young people, to succeed, you also need the wisdom and the knowledge of the older people. I will encourage young people to hold offices, including, of course, somebody of 20-something years can manage big businesses, can also manage the country. If you have good people working with you, it's possible. So I'm not saying there should be even age limit to become president of any country. Depends on how people see the individual. But let us not assume that just because somebody is young, that they will succeed. That is not true. For you to succeed, you will need the wisdom and experience of the older people.